Thanks for clicking! The Bank of Canada's interest rate cut won't improve affordability or increase real estate sales. This according to a recent poll conducted by Abacus Research.
Everything that guy just says, bull.
Indeed, and the poll, as we'll see, could be a bit more valid than the other ones that we've discussed on this channel, as this poll was not paid for by a bank or a real estate brokerage. And the poll comes shortly after the release of May's real estate data from the Canadian Real Estate Association, the CREA, where the Oracle of Canadian Real Estate himself, Sean Cathcart, gave us the CREA's thoughts on the market reaction to the Bank of Canada's rate cut.
We do think that the worst is in the rearview mirror at this point, and we do
Everything that guy just says.
Given that the summer real estate market is going to be over before we know it, and we'll no doubt start hearing that the fall real estate market is the time to move, current buyer intentions are worth going over. So what I want to do today is go over the poll coming from Abacus, take a look at the data and the narrative coming from the CREA, and then we'll discuss some implications. Stats Canada is set to release Canada's inflation data on Tuesday, and then we have the policy announcement and press conference coming from the Bank of Canada next week, and we'll obviously have an update out on both on this channel. Click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, let's get into this poll. Onto the poll. As mentioned, according to Abacus Research, the majority of Canadians don't think the Bank of Canada's rate cuts will have a major impact on Canada's real estate market, with 73% thinking affordability won't change or lead to a major increase in sales. With that said, only 6% of respondents think there will be a significant increase, and 28% think there will be a minor increase.
You know how we were wondering what we were going to do for money and all, being as we don't want to get jobs and whatnot?
And this speaks a lot about the FOMO, fear of missing out, that we've talked about so much on this channel. Whether or not a single rate cut coming from the central bank would lead Canadians to think the market is about to take off again. Given that only 6% of Canadians think that single cut will lead to a major change in the market, combined with the lack of sales that we've seen coming out of the local boards, I think we have our answer.
That's one way to look at it.
And we can see this even more when we look at buyer and seller intentions, with only 10% of would-be buyers planning on moving up their buying timeline on that rate cut. And remember, that's 10% of would-be buyers, of which there were only 855, 55% of a sample size of 1,550. Meaning, if Canada were 100 people, only 55 of them had planned on buying a home in the first place, and of those 55 people, only 5.5 were affected by the bank's rate cut. And this data stands in stark contrast to the misreported poll coming from the Financial Post, who told us 2 months ago that 72% of Canadians wouldn't buy until rates came down. Now, it should be noted that the poll actually said that 72% of the 39% of aspiring homeowners were waiting for rate cuts, or about 28% of Canadians, but that's still a big difference from the one coming from Abacus Research. It does help if you read the reports about which you are reporting, coming from a financial news network.
It's hard for some people!
Now, obviously there is a problem of magnitude, as neither the BMO nor the Abacus poll discuss how many rate cuts it would take for Canadians to enter into the market, but you get the idea. Meanwhile, the one rate cut that we do have had a similar impact on sellers, with 11% of sellers saying they are more likely to sell now because of that cut. And again, that's 11% of 748 of the 1,550, or 5.3% of Canadians. So, about 5.5% of Canadians are more likely to buy because of that rate cut, about 5.3% are more likely to sell. Basically a wash, with Abacus Research noting that the poll underscores the cautious outlook among Canadians regarding the direction of the market. And yeah, as we talked about so many times on this channel, Canadians are waiting this out. There's no rush.
Shut the f*** up.
And I just want to briefly note that this is in fact how a poll should be run. Abacus gives us the actual questions that were asked, so we know it wasn't a push poll, and the methodology of the poll was clearly articulated, not hidden in a footnote. Though, like I said, this one wasn't paid for by a bank like the BMO one that we talked about earlier, and as such was not reported on as widely. With that said, as with most polls due to the nature of technological change, take these results with a grain of salt, as even this poll was completed via the Lucid Exchange platform, meaning the results are going to be a bit skewed as the survey was only answered by that portion of the population which takes paid surveys.
Well, here's my resume.
With that said, even with Canadians basically unmoved by the Bank of Canada's rate cut, we did see a small increase in the benchmark price, the price of a home that represents the most popular set of features, which was up about $1,000 between May and June. And we also saw some tightening of inventory nationally, with the months of inventory measurement, which measures if no more homes came to the market, how long would it take for Canada to completely run out of homes for sale, dropping from 4.3 to 4.2, with the sales to new listing ratio, where a higher number indicates a market in the favor of the seller, increasing from 52.8 to 53.9. So we do see some marginal tightening in Canada's market in June, but nothing really to write home about. And to tell us more about the state of Canada's real estate market, the always entertaining CREA economist Sean Cathcart. Who's that guy? We've had this monthly sales host for the past year or so. Maybe Cathcart will let us know.
Yeah, I would describe it as a small but noticeable change in direction from what we've been seeing up until now this year.
Rude. Regardless, Cathcart starts out by lamenting the state of the media when reporting on real estate.
Analysis is tricky at the moment because anyone focused solely on year-over-year comparisons is likely to think things are just keep getting worse. And the reason I bring this up is I've been seeing reports and news stories saying exactly that in the last couple of weeks. But here's the thing. On the demand side, housing data has been pretty flat this year. Sales and prices not really up, not really down.
Yeah, that's a good point. The media, well known for being critical of the real estate industry, had the audacity to call this prices dropping. And just as a brief note, that was in fact sarcasm. I received a fairly long phone call last week from someone from Alberta who was as agitated as he was intoxicated, who apparently didn't understand that I was being sarcastic when I was pumping the real estate market.
He hung up on me.
But I digress. Cathcart notes that these year-over-year comparisons coming from the media don't really matter anymore.
Year-over-year comparisons are going to be looking worse, but it's not about things going down this year. It's about things that were going up last year, and that might as well be ancient history to compare to.
Well, they may matter a bit for those who bought last year when they were told that the market was picking up steam, and they also matter for those trying to gauge the extent to which they can trust the experts moving forward. But Cathcart is in fact correct. We really do want to understand how the market is changing now, post-rate cut.
Sure, I'll start on the sales side. They were up 3.7% from May to June. That's not record-setting or anything, but it's also not just volatility. That's a noticeable increase that we weren't seeing before. Sales also outpaced new listings this month. New listings were only up 1.5%, which means the sales to new listings ratio, measure of market balance, tightened. So did the number of months of inventory, which fell for the first time this year. It went from 4.3 months in May to 4.2 months at the end of June. That's a full month below average still, and it's the first, like I said, the first decrease this year.
And yeah, Cathcart is half right. The data shows that the national market, at least, did in fact tighten. But what we really want to do is compare this May and June, the numbers between May and June of this year, with numbers between May and June of previous years. And if we do that, we can see that sales increased between May and June by 1,372, when the average increase between May and June of previous years, the average increase between May and June was 809. So sales were in fact up abnormally for the month of June, at least on a national basis. With that said, the comparison really isn't complete, as there was also a lot more supply that came to the market in June. And the CREA doesn't provide us with those numbers, only giving us the seasonally adjusted quarterly annualized data since 2019. So we have to depend on the MOI and the SNLR. And for that, we really don't know. It's difficult to tell where the MOI and the SNLR should be between May and June. Last year, the MOI increased and the SNR loosened. 2020 to 2022 are outliers given the pandemic bubble and the subsequent burst in 2022. And then in 2019, the MOI tightened, whereas the SNLR loosened. Beyond that, though, the CREA doesn't give us enough data. We don't have the MOI or SNLR data pre-2019. And given that we also don't have the monthly listings data, we just don't have enough data to make any accurate conclusions.
I'm understanding this correctly. It looks like the bank's decision is actually, giving hope to some homebuyers out there.
Not an overly steep learning curve in this business.
This business, you don't need to know a thing.
So, in summary, Canada's benchmark price is up by about $1,000. Sales did increase a bit more than they usually would have, and the MOI and the SNLR are tightening. Though, we don't really know the relevance of that, as we don't have any, or at least not much, non-pandemic, non-bubble bursting data to which we can compare. Further, the poll from Abacus confirms what we've been seeing coming from the data out of the local real estate boards, that buyers really aren't responding to a single rate cut coming from the central bank. As to whether or not buyers will respond to a few more cuts, that remains to be seen. Just a shot in the dark, I still think Canadians are going to wait this out. Though, as with everyone else commenting on the current real estate market, I have absolutely zero data to indicate that that's the case. Nothing but anecdotal evidence. With that said, we will be getting a much better idea of where the Bank of Canada is heading when we get Stats Canada CPI released tomorrow, and we'll obviously have an update out on that release on this channel. Click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, thanks so much for watching.